Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom of 4, and today I have a video to share with you guys on the 5 most common obstacles in homeschooling and ways that I've experienced solutions or overcoming these things. Now you might be thinking, well, how would she know what the 5 most common ones are? And that is because I get hundreds of messages every single week from you guys asking for help or advice or wisdom on certain things regarding homeschooling. And so I see the same questions and the same struggles had by moms all over the world. And so I wanted to sit down and go over the top 5. Really, what are the top 5 obstacles in homeschooling, in my opinion and experience, and like I said, the audience of you guys, and what are ways that I've experienced those things in my homeschool. If you're new to my channel, I've been homeschooling for 6 years now, and so a lot of the kinks and the difficulties have kind of worked their way out of my homeschool by this point. Today's video sponsor is First Rate Tutors, and I am excited to share yet again just another resource, just another thing that might be something that helps you guys out, especially if you're a parent whose children have come home this year for distance learning. They might be an excellent option for you. So we're going to jump in and we are going to cover the top 5 obstacles in homeschooling. So again, these are the most common obstacles and issues that I see from you guys by your messages and your questions, as well as my personal experience in homeschooling. I've experienced all of these things. So the first one that is a huge obstacle when it comes to homeschooling is just feeling good old overwhelmed. Overwhelmed with the amount of curriculum, overwhelmed with your children, overwhelmed with your schedule, overwhelmed with not knowing what kind of homeschooler you are, overwhelmed with the daily task of educating your kids, overwhelmed with having multiple children. Just overwhelmed is the word. And the solution to that, I really feel, comes once you start to actually begin the homeschooling journey. I think it's one of those things that is extremely daunting until you're actually doing it. And by doing it, I mean doing it for a significant period of time. You start to see that things have fallen into place. You start to see that your worries and your fears, they're valid, but you start to see those things kind of fade away. And I really think that the overwhelming idea of homeschooling really dissipates when you exit the researching stage of homeschooling or beginning to homeschool and you enter into the I am homeschooling stage. I think all of those things regarding scheduling, regarding curriculum, regarding methods, all of that just kind of fades into the blurry background once you begin, and you start to see that you are a little less overwhelmed and, dare I say it, actually enjoying homeschooling. And the second most common obstacle in homeschooling that I have seen is just self-doubt. Doubting the fact that you as a mother can educate your children and set them up to succeed in life in whatever career path or collegiate future they might have. Self-doubt is an obstacle that doesn't necessarily go away per se, but it does become lessened as you homeschool. And so initially you have a lot of doubts because you might be walking into uncharted territory, really unsure of, how are we going to do this? We've never done this before. I've never done this before. I don't know anyone who's ever done this. And you just don't really have an idea. Of what this is supposed to look like. So it's almost the fear of the unknown that creates doubt. But then there's also just the self-doubt of you know, as a mom, like, I'm not patient enough. I hear that all the time. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I have this and this and this and this and this, and we really just doubt our capability to educate our children. I think it's really interesting when you sit back and you really assess it. I mean, when you have a baby, you might doubt, like, oh, you might feel pressure, like, oh my gosh, this life depends on me. But I don't think any of us really doubt our capabilities as moms to like teach our babies how to walk and teach them their first word and teach them how to eat food. And so it's really no different. It's just an extenuation of the of what you can teach your kids. And so I think the solution to that common homeschooling obstacle is realizing that motherhood is a calling that God has placed on your life, and He has equipped you to the fullest ability to teach your kids. He wants you to teach your kids. Now, sometimes that doesn't look like homeschooling. Sometimes that looks like Bible study at night when your kids come home from school. Sometimes that looks like a lot of different ways. But in the homeschooling aspect of things, God has called you to teach and train and disciple your children. And so when you feel your doubt in yourself, then you have to ask Him for His strength to help you become more patient, to help you become more loving, to help you solve even a simple problem. God wants us to disciple our children, and He will equip us to do it effectively. And the thing that I have always gone back to in my homeschooling journey that has spoken truth to my heart so many times over is that nobody loves my kids more than me. Not the best teacher out there, not the best English teacher, not the best history teacher in the school district, no matter what. No one in your kid's life loves them and cares about them and wants them to grow in Christ more than you as a mom. And so when you rest on that truth, all of the self-doubt really starts to fade away. And like number one, the longer you do it, the more you see the benefit, the more you see the fruit, the more you see that everything you worried about really wasn't worth worrying about, even though I hate being someone who says that. It's just true. And it's been true in my own homeschooling journey as well. So the third common obstacle with homeschooling that I see is when moms try to do everything for all of their kids and do all the things, right? Like, I'm going to teach every subject to every child, and you have multiple of them, and you don't really utilize or outsource anything. That can become an obstacle with time management. That can become an obstacle with feeling overwhelmed and burned out. That can become an obstacle of just mentally, if it's a subject that you don't really care to teach, or you don't really want to teach, or you don't feel like you do a good job at it. And so one of the biggest benefits of homeschooling is that we are given the authority over our children's education. And that can be a burden at times, but it really is a responsibility. And so our job as homeschooling moms is to facilitate the best educational avenues for each individual child. That's one of the biggest perks of it. So sometimes, especially as your kids get older, they might need to learn from someone else other than you. And that doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean that you're doing a terrible job. That just means that they might need the information presented differently. They might just want a fresh face. They might want just a different program. And so I am always looking for ways to incorporate different people, different programs, different things into my homeschool. And so that is why I want to share First Rate Tutors with you guys. They have an awesome program online that I will have a link and a coupon code for you guys down in the description box. And I want to just read, because I don't want to say, I don't want to give you guys any incorrect information. So it's basically, there's courses online, and it starts off with the basics, and it eventually progresses and becomes much more advanced. There's a lot of practical exercises, and a lot of you guys who have reached out to me over the past few months have been parents whose children are distance learning because of the lockdown. So this is an amazing resource if you feel like your kids are just not getting what they needed to, or if they've fallen a little bit behind. This would be an awesome way for them to catch up. So sometimes it's difficult as a parent to come up with like all of the different materials and the different studying environments, and you don't know how to create like the structure and the sequence of things to help them learn, especially if you're new to this or didn't really want to be doing this with distance learning. And so the First Rate Tutors program has classes broken up into 10 weeks, and they are structured, and it will create a routine that will establish a conducive learning environment. It will make sense moving on from one thing to the next. Barbara is the teacher on First Rate Tutors, and she's the one that reached out to me to share with you guys. And she walks through students on how to write different stories for reading comprehension, and just how to create stories, how to write stories. Writing is always kind of a little bit of a challenge in homeschooling as well. And so anytime there's an additional resource or an additional way that the information can be presented, I'm not against it. There's tons of activities as well as the answers online, so you can make sure that your kiddo is staying on track. So I will have a link to First Rate Tutors down in the description box, and you guys can check them out if you're looking for help in the English or writing area of your homeschool, or if your child is distance learning and you feel like they're falling behind, you might consider supplementing or adding something like that into. You don't want to take the plunge into a whole homeschooling curriculum. This will be a great bridge between the two things. So other than that, I mean, in my own homeschooling journey, I have had to outsource different things, foreign language, music, just, you know, sports, PE. There's a lot of things that I don't teach myself, you know? So I think when we try to take every single thing on, it becomes overwhelming, and to us and our kids, and it doesn't need to be that way. Sometimes we just need to incorporate other things, math, for instance, you know? So don't feel like you can't outsource. That's what homeschooling is all about, is pulling in resources to help the job get done. And it really doesn't matter too much on, you know, how, I know we as homeschoolers, we want to live and die by our curriculums, but it really, at the end of the day, you're just trying to make sure that your child understands that information and that they're well educated, and lots of other things that have to do with their character and their heart that are more important. So don't be afraid to reach out to friends, utilize online resources, but one of the biggest obstacles that I hear from you guys is that you're just trying to do it all and you can't do it, and that's because you can't. The fourth obstacle that I hear most commonly is surrounding having babies, toddlers, lots of little kids, lots going on. I hear a lot with, you know, family situations like moving or job loss or health issues. And so what I want to touch on for those obstacles is that homeschooling is a way of life. It's a way of it's your family rhythm. It's who your family is. It's a part of your home. It's a part of your home. And so inevitably, when a new sibling is born, or when there's a health crisis or a job loss, life will happen in our homes. And I think that so much freedom comes to overcome that obstacle when you allow yourself to look at homeschooling as a way of your family and not something you do between the hours of 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Homeschooling is the home. The home is the heart of the homeschool. And so life will ebb and flow, and what better opportunities to teach your kids life skills and how to make decisions and how to deal with difficult things than through actually living it out. When a new sibling comes into the mix and they might be requiring more time from you, and mom can't get to all of the book work that they used to, what a wonderful time to demonstrate sacrificial motherhood and love and family bonding, and incorporating your older or younger kids into taking care of the new sibling, learning how to put themselves last and put someone before them, service in the family. There's just so much value to all of these things. And so when you start to look at those situations, not as obstacles in your homeschool, but just as a part of your life, and homeschooling is your life, then it breathes grace and you feel free to just do what you need to do for the season that you're in, and knowing that it will not last forever, and that everyone in your family, no matter what you're up against, will be okay. So I hear so many obstacles that have to do with things like that, and I just think that it's so important to view homeschooling as a part of your life and the way your family lives, not something you do between these certain hours. And once you let go of that, then you can just breathe, and you can see that there's so much value in so many things that I just talked about. And I could keep going, but I'm trying to keep the video concise. The last obstacle that I hear most from you guys to round out this top 5 homeschooling obstacles / solutions video has a lot to do with difficulty with your kids' learning styles, and just their attitude towards schoolwork, not wanting to really do it, not wanting to listen to you, being kind of disobedient or disrespectful, or maybe just having a poor attitude when it comes to school. So there's a lot that I could say on this, and there's probably enough to do an entire video, but what I really think will bring about a solution to that is sitting down and figuring out what is going on. Now, I usually think when a child is resistant to learning and doesn't want to engage in that way, there's usually been 3 things that have happened. Number 1 being they have been trained to see school as a terrible thing and see learning as not fun, and they would just rather be on their video game. And that can happen when you take your kids out of public school if they've had some really awful experiences, or it just hasn't been set up in a way that they've enjoyed. It can take a lot of time to deprogram that. The next thing is usually what it mostly is, in my opinion, and that is a heart issue within your child. You know, why do they want to be difficult and disobedient? Well, we know why. They have a sinful nature, but why can't they be enjoyable for schooling? And only you hold the answers to that through prayer. And the third reason that I think that this usually happens is because the child might it might be too much, it might be too much too soon, and they're overwhelmed and they just would rather quit. Or they might have a different learning style or different needs than you're presenting that information for. And it usually is one of those 3 things when it comes to a kid not wanting to do school, not wanting to do any kind of educational learning activities, and is just very disinterested. It usually falls into one of those 3 things. And so there's solutions for every situation there. Of course, I can't touch on them all, but the first one, if you're taking your child out of school and they have really been set up to believe that school is boring, school is dumb. I mean, this is a lot of what kids hear in public schools from their peers and even books that they read. It's not fun, yada yada. It can take a long time to deprogram them of that. And so I think the solution to that is to make homeschooling look as little like the public school system as possible. And you might need to unschool for a while. You might need to say, what do you want to learn about? I bet you they might not even be able to answer that, because in public school, it doesn't really matter what they want to learn about. They're not asked that. And so it can take a while to do that, but I think it's really important, and that usually will bring about some resolution to that camp if you fall there. The heart issue or the behavior issue situation depends on every child and every family disciplines differently, so I don't want to say exactly what I would do, but sometimes you do have to have consequences for poor actions and poor attitudes, and sometimes you need to really have a heart-to-heart. You need to talk talk through those heart issues, pray about them together, whatever your solution might look like. If it's a behavioral thing, then the solution will be found there. If they're overwhelmed, or they're too young, or they've got a different learning style than you, or they might want to learn that a little bit differently, or whatever it might be, the solution is usually found in trying lots of different things, figuring out what works best for that kid for that. And if they're 4 and they don't want to sit for 3 hours, then it's having realistic expectations. But if it's a child who's 10 who really struggles with math, you might have to go through, you know, experimentation periods where you're figuring out, how can my child learn this the best? And that is something that is going to be so specific to you and your family. So you would really have to dedicate yourself with time and effort and energy to find the solution for that. But that is going to wrap up this 5 most common homeschooling obstacles and the solutions to those things, in my opinion. If you have any advice, or if you think I left off one of the most common homeschooling obstacles as a parent, I wasn't talking about homeschooling myths like, oh, they're unsocialized or anything. I'm talking about the obstacles that most homeschoolers will run into, then leave it down below, because I know that there's more. I had to just narrow it down to 5. But I hope you guys enjoyed hearing a little bit of wisdom from me today. I hope it blessed you. Let me know if anything I said resonated with you, or if you agree or disagree. And be sure to check out First Rate Tutors down in the description box if you're looking for a little bit of help or a way to outsource English or writing. I think you guys will enjoy the course Barbara has created. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you all in my next video really soon. Bye guys.